Welcome to Big Brother Basics, where we break down the basics of Big Brother Basics Season 3. I'm your host, Keith Guerrero, and joining me is the always fantastic, always fabulous Jermaine Kendricks. Jermaine, how are you doing today?
Fantastic.
Excellent, excellent. And also joining us is the always erratic, always ecstatic, Katie Vandervliet. Katie, how are you?
I'm doing just fine, Keith. Thanks for asking.
Hey, no problem. That's what I'm here for. So we're going to talk about week 2. There was a lot of events that happened, perhaps an even more divided house. Jermaine, what are your overall thoughts of the dynamics of the Big Brother Basics Season 3 house? Were you surprised to see it divided so early?
Yes, extremely. I know that sometimes it can take a little bit of time before sides start to clearly form. But I mean, especially after that first eviction, it was like you could pretty much pinpoint immediately who's going to what side and who's going to the other side. It happened way faster than I expected it to, honestly.
Yes, for sure. And it seems like it's kind of a disadvantage to play the middle so far. We saw Pam leave week 1. We saw Sean leave week 2. Katie, what do you think the theme will be in Big Brother Basics? Do you think somebody from the side's going to win, or do you think somebody potentially in the middle still has a chance?
I think it really depends on who HOH is this week. I think if it's one of the major leaders of the two sides, like if it's a Joe or a Taylor or a Chris or Shelby, well, not Shelby, but if it's one of the bigger players, then it will be another big player that goes up. If it's somebody who's maybe a little more scared, someone who has a side like a Ryan or a Mandy, but doesn't necessarily want to be a big player, then you're going to see a player like Andrew go up for being in the middle because they just don't necessarily know what they want to do exactly. But I think there are going to be some potentials for some big moves depending on who's in power this week, for sure.
Definitely. And there are 2 pre-jury spots left. It's absolutely crazy. It's kind of like each side knows where they stand and they're about to go guns blazing. But before we get too far into what's going to happen this coming week, let's talk about week 2. So at the end of week 1, we were actually very high on Shelby. Many of us thought that she had the potential to win, but turns out she had the potential to win that next week's head of household competition. Jermaine, do you think that Shelby needed to win that head of household competition?
For her side, it was definitely advantageous for her side. For her game, I feel like she wanted to be a little bit more under the radar. I know she went into the HOH pretty much saying she didn't want to win it, but she would win it if she needed to. So I think overall, it probably was a lot more beneficial to her.
Definitely, especially considering the person that got second place was Chris Brown, who is completely on the opposite side of Shelby. They may be cordial and everything, but they are working with different people. So Katie, talk a little bit about Shelby's thought process with these nominations. Do you think it was smart of her to target somebody as big of a character as Taylor?
So initially, I didn't necessarily think it might have been a good idea just because it would immediately set those divides into the house. And I don't know if I wanted that to happen, but after watching her thought process and her going, okay, well, I need to know who's loyal to me and who's not. She's not. I want to make a statement to those who are. I think in doing that, Shelby really solidified her own alliance for herself. I think she really solidified where she stood with people that needed to know where she stood. So I think it was a good move for her. It would have been even better had things worked out for her with her HOH and it stayed the same. But I do think it was the right thing for her to do for her own alliance.
I'm going to give a little bit of criticism for Shelby because I was with her the entire time, asking for multiple hangouts, talking about meeting with each person individually. And it's almost dangerous to be completely available to talk to everybody. Shelby had no plans the entire day before nominations, and she was consistently talking to different people on both sides, not really sure of what to do. She was bringing in multiple people. Her mind was constantly changing. And usually as head of household, you want to make deals and you want to give people some peace of mind. I'm not sure if she really gave people peace of mind because it seemed like a lot of people were options, and a lot of people felt like they were options as well. Jermaine, do you think that Shelby could have handled that differently, or do you think that it's okay for her to say, these are my people, these people are safe, everybody else is up for grabs?
Um, well, I mean, it's good in a sense of it kind of lets people know a bit, you know, well, it really doesn't kind of let people know where they stand with her besides her allies. I know there were a lot of people who were very uneasy about her winning HOH, and uh, it. I don't know if it was. I don't know if the way she handled it was the most strategic. I don't think she benefited much from like her process. I don't think she really got a lot of good solid information out of people as she should have. You know, that's one of like the really high points of being HOH is you kind of get to pick people's brains. And it almost in turn kind of feels like some people ended up picking her brain more than her picking their brains.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Katie, let's talk about who sits next to Taylor, because sure, Taylor's the target, but who's the good pawn to put up next to Taylor? Was Sean the correct decision? Especially considering that two of her closest allies, Jacob and Joe, have plans with Sean in the game.
I don't think Sean was the right choice. I know she'd been talking about making a big move. Instead of putting like two pawns, she was toying with the idea of putting up both Chris and Taylor, which I loved because I thought it was so brash and so dangerous, but like it's high risk, high reward. And I thought that would be a really cool way, like I said, to really solidify what she was thinking. Like you're talking about how she was sort of going through and talking to everybody and everybody felt like they weren't somewhere. Had she done that, I think she would have really like shown exactly like who wasn't an option, that she didn't want to put up people as pawns, that she wanted to put up big players. And I thought that would have been really cool. She didn't do that. She put up somebody who could have potentially worked with her, which maybe not the best. I get why she didn't put up an Andrew, but I think she should have if she wasn't going to put up Chris, I think she should have put up Mandy as the first choice, to be honest.
Definitely. Jermaine, let's talk a little bit about Chris. He kind of took a back seat this week, wanted to see who would reach out to him, and nobody from Shelby's side really reached out to Chris. It was mainly the other side, the Taylors, the Michael Bradys, and Chris is starting to feel uneasy throughout this week. Sure, Shelby didn't nominate him, but he's also not getting any messages from anybody from Shelby's side. What are you thinking right now for Chris's game in terms of how he manages to escape this week, but also moving forward?
It's interesting because he has already really established himself as a social player, and for him to kind of lay low back, like I can understand his thought process by doing it just because he wants to see like how many genuine relationships he's formed with people, and the fact that like not really many people reached out to him, I think definitely set off some alarms in his head that, okay, you know, in his mind, like this person's fake, this person's fake, this person's not here for me, this person's not here for me. And it helps him that going into the next HOH, if he were to win, he has now pretty much lined up some clear-cut targets for him. But unfortunately, he also has lined up like quite a few people who are gunning for him now. It is better, I guess, to have like the enemy you know rather than like the enemy you kind of aren't sure about. So I guess it was a little beneficial in the long run for him, I feel like.
Sure thing. And even though Chris wasn't on the block, he is kind of that glue to help those house calls stay cordial and friendly. But there's no cordial and friendly house calls with those nominations. Everybody's on edge. Nobody wants to talk to each other, and everybody sees the other people as fake. And this is with Sean and Taylor on the block. Now let's talk a little bit about the veto competition. We got some veto player picks: Mandy, Jonathan, and someone else. Who was it? Was it Ryan? I don't remember.
Was it Andrew?
It was Andrew, yes. Mandy, Jonathan, and Andrew. Now there is a kind of a controversial thing with the rescheduling of the time, because had the time been exactly where it was supposed to be, Taylor St. Louis and Mandy would have been automatically eliminated from the competition. Katie, if you were in Shelby's position, would you have allowed for the time switch? And what did you think of that whole fiasco?
I think that's really tough, because if Shelby had done what was probably the best thing for her game and said, no, I'm not switching the time. No, the whole week might have turned out very differently. But at the same time, I think if Shelby had said, no, I'm not changing the time, that paints a picture of her to a lot of people, a picture that maybe she doesn't want of herself yet, that she is cutthroat and willing to do anything. And I don't know if she wants that, because we all saw what happened when Andrew had those words associated with him. So if Shelby had to publicly say, no, screw you, Taylor and Mandy, to people who were potentials, then I think that would have made her look really bad. Again, probably the best for her game had she had said no, but I don't know if you can do that in a game that's heavy on social game, right? I don't think it would have been good for her.
Yeah, and it was tough because like I felt bad too, even suggesting to Shelby, hey, like, can you please like do this? It's up to you. I respect your decision. But again, I agree with you, Katie. I do think that karma is a real thing. So if she would have potentially done that, maybe things would not have worked out for her. But the fact that she did, and despite the result, I think that good things will come to Shelby. We'll see. So let's talk about the veto competition itself. It's Knight's moves. Mandy doesn't show up. Still 5-player veto competition. And out the gate, Taylor starts in the bottom left corner and is eliminated from she has only 2 options to move. Shelby was at one of her options, so she only had one option to move somewhere. I found it very interesting watching the veto players compete, because there's people like Andrew who really just wants to throw it and doesn't necessarily want to like show that he's targeting people. There's also people like Jonathan who's trying to help Shelby in her own way, but I really didn't see that much strategy from a lot of people inside the competition. Jermaine, do you think that this is a missed opportunity to take out Taylor from the people competing, because Sean was the first person eliminated from the game?
So I'm gonna say for Jonathan, yeah, very, very dumb. Like, he already knows Taylor is somebody who is not here for him and is quick to try to get him out. I don't know why he wouldn't want that veto so much harder just to cement her fate. As for Andrew, I mean, we've already established Andrew is going to throw and just kind of drift in the wind whichever way it goes. So I'm going to say that it's a game just because that's the type of game that he wants to play. But for Jonathan, it's a no, not smart, not smart.
Definitely. And so I want to talk a little bit about Shelby too, because at the end of the game, she is taking a lot of blame for herself, because she thinks that if she would have taken another move other than the one that sealed her fate, she would have won. But I do want to say, Shelby, I reviewed it. Taylor still would have won, so don't beat yourself up. But yes, right now, everything is kind of crumbling in Shelby's world. Her target won the power veto. This is worst case scenario. Sean remains on the block. Jacob and Joe are freaking out because Sean is so important to their game. And now she has to name a replacement, get even more blood on her hands. Katie, let's talk about replacement options, because sure, Shelby and Chris are good with each other, but as far as the group goes, Chris is super threatening to Shelby's game. Do you think that Chris should be a viable option, or do you think that she should go after somebody like Mandy or Andrew?
So I think that at the time, Shelby maybe wasn't as aware of how clear-cut the lines looked in the house. And so she didn't choose Chris because she wanted to keep that option open. But like less than 5 hours, I think, after, like, it was obvious that there were 2 sides of the house, and Chris was on the one and Shelby was on the opposite. And so I think had she maybe been more open to that concept, she would have put Chris up, which I think would have been her best idea, especially because someone like Mandy, a lot of people are calling like loyal to a fault and not for the right side. So she might have been a vote, but putting Chris up, I think, jars them. And I think it would have been her best move. I think she saw the signs wrong or saw them too late that, hey, it doesn't matter. Chris isn't with you no matter what. And she wanted to have a relationship with him that wasn't there when she made the decision and wasn't going to be there afterwards anyway. So I don't know. That's me.
Right. So she did end up deciding to nominate Mandy, her rationale being that she heard Mandy's argument. If she remains off the block, it'll be a vote. But at the end of the day, the relationships, the individual relationships that everybody's weaving on her side, the only two important people from her side, Dustin and Jacob, they both agreed that Mandy was the person that they felt comfortable agreeing to. And so Shelby did it for a boy. She put Mandy on the block. Jermaine, let's talk a little bit about what happened afterwards, because as soon as Mandy hit the block, both Mandy and Sean's social game are tested. And there is a kind of an interesting move on Mandy's behalf where Mandy's trying to understand the truth from Sean. So they're going to compare notes and see who has whose votes. Jermaine, what did you think about Mandy giving Sean a list of people that said that they're going to vote to keep her?
That is my best response to that. Why would you go to your fellow nominee and say, oh, I got these people that say they're gonna keep me? Like, it was like she had the safety and she just decided that she was gonna just like walk outside and toss it in the air and see if she could catch it. Like, I don't understand well, there was no strategic thought behind it, honestly. It was Mandy pretty much just being herself and just being like saying what's on her mind, being upfront and just being like, oh yeah, I got this casually, not thinking like, oh, he might take who I tell him is trying to save me and like try to flip him or work on him or confront him or something like that. It at best I can just say like an airhead move to do.
Right. Katie, I do want to talk about Michael Brady because I think that it was very interesting for him to have to select between his allies. Both Jacob and Shelby mentioned that with Mandy as the replacement, and Shelby feeling like, I feel like Brady's fucking me right now. Like, let him pick between his allies. You get to choose. Who do you want to go out? So you have Sean, who is being campaigned from your enemies, Jacob and Joe, to stay. And you have Mandy, who already fucked up and revealed the alliance of people that are going to be voting to keep her. Who's more dangerous to your game? Who would you vote to keep and vote out if you were in Michael Brady's position?
So I feel like that's already an answered question to me because we know from the beginning Michael Brady and Mandy had a really good relationship. Like, for some reason, they connected really, really well. And I know that Michael Brady feels that connection with a lot of people, but I think on a personal level, he trusted Mandy more than he trusted Sean, and he knows she fucked up, but a fuck up once ensures that those mistakes don't necessarily happen again, where mistrust is always kind of there. And so I feel like he was like, she made a mistake, but she learned from that mistake. Like, she can learn from it. I think she even said, like, I screwed up, guys. Like, I know I did, right? Whereas Sean, that mistrust is always going to be there. So I think that it wasn't even a choice when I look at it from his perspective. Like, he's keeping Mandy no matter what.
Awesome. Jermaine, let's talk about Chris, because on Sean's way out, his plea was directly targeted to Chris. He was saying, Chris, I have your back. That's it. So Chris is going into the voting booth thinking, you know, it's like, oh crap, am I going to make the right decision for my game? Because apparently, and this was confirmed in Sean's eviction interview, Chris was his closest ally. He felt closest to Chris. He wanted to go to the end with Chris. What do you think about Chris's justification in keeping Mandy over Sean?
So Chris definitely let his paranoia get the best of him in that decision, because Chris had said that the fact that Sean withheld the information of him being in a 3-person alliance at the beginning of the game, like kind of pretty much the fact that it took Sean up until him getting nominated to admit that to him, pretty much made Chris go like, oh, so you know what? You'll keep things from me unless it benefits you. So I don't trust you as much as I thought I would. So you got to go over Mandy, who, as we already witnessed, will literally say whatever is told her because that's just how she does. So I think looking back, he probably might kind of be like punching himself in the face, that he let somebody go who helps kind of separate him from that him and Taylor stigma. But obviously he can't see what's going on in the grand scheme of things. And so he went with the paranoia and the unsureness that is with Sean. And it's going to hurt him. It's really going to hurt him going down the line.
Katie, I do want to bring back something you mentioned last week about Sean, because you were saying that he is casting his information wide and thin, which could work at the towards the end of the game, but is very dangerous at the beginning of the game. Sean found himself on the block. He told people on the other side that he was in an alliance chat with Joe and Jacob. Joe and Jacob are saying that they want Sean to stay despite Sean leaving the alliance chat. Did Sean speak too much? Talk about Sean's social play.
Well, yeah, I think Sean, that's been his problem. He's a chatty guy, but that's part of his charm at the same time, that he talks a lot and he likes to let loose, and he's easy to talk to, but loose links sip ships. And when you get in a comfortable conversation, sometimes you just let things go, or whether you mean to or not. And I know Sean intentionally told people the information, but I'd like to, for his own sake, I'm going to pretend like he made some mistakes and he didn't mean to say everything he said, because if he did, then why are you spreading yourself so thin? Why would you do that? It wasn't the gameplay from the start, and he stuck with it, and it didn't work out for him.
Awesome. We are now joined by Nick. Nick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hey.
Perfect. So we're at the eviction point of the discussion right now, and I want you to tell me about the swing vote, Andrew. Andrew is again finding himself in the swing vote position. Does he stay with Shelby's side, or does he flip to Taylor's side? What did you think about Andrew's decision to flip and to vote out Sean?
It's tough to say whether that was a good decision or not, but either way, the fact that he's the swing vote makes Andrew kind of like the untrustworthy one in the house. I do kind of more understand, personally, I understand more Shelby's side and kind of wanting to get rid of Mandy at that point as being kind of like the pawn star who, kind of similar to Pam, maybe someone who you're afraid to go up with all the time. So I don't know. His decision is a little bit questionable, and I'm still kind of waiting to see like his reasoning behind his decision. But yeah, it makes him a little bit shady for the rest of the house.
I do want to say that I would like to commend Andrew for being the only person to vote in the majority for the first 2 weeks, but we'll see how that works in jury phase, because I think Andrew makes it there. I think Andrew's going to make jury phase. 2 people have to go before jury starts, and I don't think Andrew will be one of those 2 people. But will he be able to build a case to win? That is yet to be determined. So we are going into this HOH competition. Pam's out, Sean's out, the sides are formed, and we're going to see some blood this week. Jermaine, who do you want to win head of household, and who do you think is in danger?
So we know the 4 big targets that have pretty much all said it themselves, the pairs, the big power pairs. Joe and Jacob and Chris and Taylor are definitely the big targets. So I personally would like to see someone more along the lines of like Ryan or Dustin win the HOH, because although they have their sides, especially like in Ryan's case, who's kind of been trying to like stay under the radar, be weak, not let anybody think he's a threat. I think him getting pushed into like the limelight will be interesting to see how he maneuvers that, because obviously he does have his sides, but he still is going to have, he still has people on the other side who think they're good with him. Like Joe thinks that he's somewhat good with him. It would be interesting. I'm going to say more so Ryan. I want to see him win HOH just because there will be a little bit of a like, okay, well, I think I'm good with him, but I'm not too sure.
You just want Ryan to win so he can ruin his game. Because Ryan is really in a good spot. I think he's done a great job being the town drunk and having fun and like mingling with everybody. But he's in a position in this game because of his lack of relationships and his charisma. People like him for him to be able to go under the radar. And surprising that this season, usually a lot of people want to go under the radar. Ryan's executing it flawlessly. So good job, Ryan. Just Keep on doing you. Katie, who do you want to win HOH?
See, I like a little bit of drama in my life. So my choice for HOH is going to be like a TSL or a Michael Brady or a Joe. Like, I want to see somebody win who's like, I'm in. At the same time, though, I don't think I want one side to be completely in power. So, like, I see the not wanting them to, but I think it'd be heavy drama if they did, and I'm all about the heavy drama. So.
Awesome. And Nick, same question. Who do you want to see win head of household?
I think I might go more like Jermaine's way of kind of like someone who's kind of on a side, but not necessarily one of the main people, just because then they'll be forced to make decisions that they may not want to have made. So I don't think Ryan's going to win because I think his plan is just to throw every competition from here till who knows when. So I would say, yeah, someone like Dustin, or you know who would be great? It would be Andrew to win HOH. I don't think that's going to happen either, just because I don't know if he wants to win HOH, but I feel like him winning HOH would be like the best possible scenario for from a viewer's point of view.
I would fucking love if Andrew won and then put one from each side. Just like battle it out. Good luck. That'd be super funny. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this head of household competition. I know it's going to cause mayhem and drama because they're going to be working in pairs, and man, that's going to be fun to watch. But we'll see how it all goes. At the end of the day, we're very satisfied with this cast. Split votes, 5-4 votes, absolutely insane. Keep on going on. Thanks again, production, for breaking down the basics, and house guests, stay basic.